Job Hunting
101.
Providing you with the tools you need in your job search. Job Hunting
101.
Hello there, and welcome to another in a series of programs entitled Job Hunting 101. I'm Dale Green, and I'm a career manager at Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance. I'm very delighted to have two excellent guests, or who I call subject matter experts, SMEs. My first guest.
Hi, I'm Latarsha Melvin. I work with Public Supermarkets. I'm the retail staffing specialist there.
And you, sir?
Hi, I'm Dr. James Good with Hillsborough County Public Schools. I'm a recruiter for the school district.
Right. We want to talk today about an effective job search. You know, this is a real interesting time that we're in. Our economy is growing. There are more jobs now than there were at this time last year, and it keeps getting better and better. But there are some do's and don'ts that our job candidates should practice. And I'll start off with you, Ms. Melvin. First of all, when people come into your stores, you have a pretty big geographic area for Publix to help with. But what are some basic things that people should keep in mind when they come into a store and get to the kiosk, the whole process when they apply? What should they do?
Well, definitely a first impression is very important. If they definitely think about this may be an interview day, you never know who you may meet. You may actually get a chance to meet the store manager that day, and it's always good to have a first impression to be a good one. Dress for success, dress to impress. That's what we always preach. So we definitely want to look the part. You want to look the part, act the part, and carry yourself in a professional way in order to better your chances of obtaining a position with Publix.
Right. Now, when you say dress to impress, are you saying that the candidates should dress at or above the level of the store associates who basically have a polo shirt or black bottoms or something like that?
Well, I would say definitely dress better than the way that the associates are dressed at that point. They are actually working in a particular role. They're in a particular job. So you want to make yourself stand out and be the best that you can be. And that's one way to do so, is to dress appropriately.
Right. Jim, dealing with the 8th largest public school district in the country, there are a lot of schools, a lot of teachers. In fact, Hillsborough County Schools is the largest employer in Hillsborough County. When a prospective employee, whether it's a janitor, whether it's a bus driver or what have you, but usually it's a teacher that's coming into the office, a prospective teacher, how should they dress? How should they handle themselves? Who should they impress?
Well, you have to impress the department manager that has the vacancy, so keep that always in mind. You're interviewing, and it's potentially the person who will offer you a job on the spot. So dress for success. I'm going to echo what she said. Absolutely dress the best that you can. If it's going to be for a support position such as a custodian, do your best. Bring in your best line of clothing, sit down, and do articulate exactly what your needs are. But that first impression, when they look at you as you come in, is going to set the tone for the interview.
Right. I'll ask either of you to respond in no particular order. Research. I always use Publix. I've been using Publix lately as an example by saying, what do you know about Publix? And I said something in role-playing with a job candidate, saying something like, well, your store is at Dale Mabry and Lion Ball and it's green and white? No. Hi, you have several stores from Gainesville to the north, Lakeland to the east, and Naples to the south. You pride yourself on taking people to where they need to go to get their product. And your brand statement is where shopping is a pleasure. How important, and your stocks went up $1.22 or whatever, how important is research when looking for a job?
It's very important because it shows the hiring manager that you're actually interested in the company, to actually take time to seek out what's important to Publix as a company, to know that we have been named on the Fortune's 500 list, to know that we're one of the top employers of the state. All of that is very important to us. So if we feel that you've taken the time to research information about us, then we feel that we're important to you, and you're also important to us as well. So you make your chances greater by doing so.
Does that set you above other candidates who don't know much, like the first role play I did by saying you're at Lion Ball and your colors are green and white?
Absolutely, absolutely. It tells us that you haven't put too much thought into our company. So, it makes us think, maybe why should we think wholeheartedly about you? Right.
Dr. Good, with what, at least 200 schools in Hillsborough County? Is that about how many?
About 250 when we count the ancillary sites.
It is important to get the mascot straight. I mean, if you're applying for the King Lions, that's their mascot, you don't bring in there and talk about the Gophers. How important is research?
Absolutely. The internet now can be your friend. I mean, our websites, whether it be Publix or the school district, your website's definitely your friend. You need to research the site where you're going to interview, look at the student population, look at the site, see where their pros are, see what things could be fixed at that school, and bring that to fore in the interview. If you're a teacher, if you're working for support, know the population, know what their needs are, and bring that to fore in your interview. It'll only help you get the position.
Right. Let's talk about something more introspective. How do I know I want to be a teacher? I mean, in other words, how do I need to assess myself? How should I go about assessing myself to find out if this is a good fit? Maybe substitute first?
It's excellent to do some substitute teaching unless you know right off the bat that you want to teach. We do draw in quite a few teachers into the school district, especially in our secondary setting, that's 6th through 12th grade, that do have either careers in other fields, do have a college degree, and then realize that they do have a passion for teaching. And we can help them transition into teaching. But the first thing is always you have to believe in kids. That's number one.
Right. And Ms. Melvin, I will assume that dealing with customers, dealing with people, you have to have a love and a good rapport with people, because that's who you're dealing with.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's something that definitely our hiring managers look at, is how well you are able to communicate with them, therefore assessing how well you will be able to communicate with our customers. And you do have to have a love for customers in order to be able to appreciate your job and appreciate what you do and enjoy it.
Right. After so many rejections, how can people stay motivated, stay positive, and stay organized? Motivated, positive, and organized.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with that one. I think it's important, especially if you've gone for a similar type of interview or a similar position on several interviews and not landed that, it's okay to go back possibly to those different sites, talk to those hiring managers, and get feedback on your interview so that you're better prepared for that second interview. You don't repeat the same mistakes.
Okay. And how important is a thank you note?
Very important. Who doesn't like a thank you? Everybody.
You can buy a thank you note right there in Publix.
You sure can.
A shameless plug. I'm sorry.
You sure can. Right in the greeting cards aisle. You can. That is definitely something you'll want to take advantage of. Everyone likes to hear a thank you, whether you're a customer or a hiring manager or whomever. Everyone likes to hear a thank you as well. So just to let you know that how much we appreciate you considering me for the position. That's very important.
Right. But a thank you note to a assistant principal or a principal, everything should be spelled correctly. After all, it's education.
I would hope so. And it's also a great follow-up, because it just puts that person back on the plate for that particular hiring manager to let them know if the position is still vacant, I'm interested and thank you. It's a good courteous way to say thank you for interviewing me the first time. If it's still available, please consider me. So it's a great segue.
Right. Now, when talking about follow-up, I mean, somebody can always send a thank you email. They can send a thank you card by email. The old-fashioned way of writing it out and mailing it, does that have one advantage or disadvantage over just sending an email? What do you think?
Well, I think it either way can be very positive. Sometimes even coming back to actually say that thank you can actually have meaning as well, not just through writing, but actually coming back to the manager or the hiring manager, letting them know, I do appreciate your time and I am still open for the position, and please to consider me. So, I mean, I think either way can be very effective.
Right. How important is it to line up a plan, not sort of do just a haphazard kind of thing, but just have something in writing where you have a log of what you did, and you made a real good point about following up. You can't follow up enough, but sometimes you don't want to be, you can be assertive but not aggressive. What about that, Jim? What's the timetable for following it up?
You do have to follow up. I would certainly, after you do an interview within the week, 5 business days, let's say, try to follow up with a thank you, either in person or certainly with a note. Email, of course, now with the younger generation, they kind of prefer that, but I think that old written note certainly does impress, because not a lot of people are going to take the time to do that. But certainly do a follow-up, whether it be with a thank you note or a visit back to that site, just to let them know that you're still available, because that persistence is going to pay off. There is a fine line between being too aggressive and following up.
You think you should ask the hiring manager, how often may I contact you, and which method would you like for me to use, so that they're persistent but not pushy?
That's not a bad idea because you are getting the input from the hiring manager on what method they do prefer, and you know, their preferential option is the one that you would want to choose if that's what you do.
Right. Now, when going to the kiosk, I always mention this. Of course, with the school system, it's pretty much strictly online.
Correct.
In the first
application
process, School District of Hillsborough County. All you have to do, I mean, I'm not going to get into the .gov, on and on and on. Just put in Google School District of Hillsborough County, Florida, and you'll come up with the
website for our school district.
Right.
Correct.
Exactly. But is anybody going to come out of produce or the deli to help a candidate to apply online at Publix?
If they ask.
That'll be kind of unusual to ask, wouldn't it? I mean, in other words, people often volunteer probably too much in the workforce centers, one-stop centers. Hey, I don't know much about computers, I need help. I mean, if it's something technically wrong, I guess, but other than that, it would be kind of unusual, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty odd. That's probably not going to happen unless they see you struggling with the computer or something.
Right. And Dr. Good, what's a rule of thumb when you're applying for work in the School District of Hillsborough County online?
You have to be savvy enough to work the computer, but you know, some people actually don't have computers at home, don't have internet access. We do have our own computers in an application center, which is a part of HR, and we do have staff that will assist you in between assisting, you know, walk-ins, other people coming in with other questions, but they will assist you. We have people have zero computer skills that were able to get through it. So it is doable, but you know, don't be afraid to ask. It's okay. We will have someone assist you in our organizations.
Right. And also, how important is networking, you think? In other words, you don't want to stay in the parking lot of a school or the Publix to try to talk to somebody and say, hey, how do you like working there? You don't want to network like that. But what is a good way to network with people, a prospective employer, I should say?
Well, there are many different ways of networking, and a lot of people, they may think that they really don't have a networking source, but everybody really does have a networking source, whether it be through friends or family or neighbors or even church organizations. Definitely everyone has a networking source. So you can network in many different ways. There are career fairs that may go on. Definitely keep an eye out on social media. Sometimes we post positions on Facebook, Craigslist. All of those are different ways of networking and definitely ways that people can take advantage of. Networking is very, very important.
What about a cover letter or something like that, or your resume? Should a person always have a resume with them?
I think a person should always have a resume with them, at least of one copy. So you need to have, I would suggest more than one copy of a resume because you never know who you may meet. So you definitely want to be prepared. You definitely want to be, you know, always on guard for someone, for that perfect opportunity. You never know who you might meet or run into, so you always want to be prepared. Always have a resume and a cover letter. Right.
Now, before we started the show, you had your portfolio here, but it wasn't orange, it wasn't yellow, it wasn't purple, it was black.
Yes.
In other words, even if you have to get a 25-cent folder, make sure it's very conservative color, because that stands out. And besides, what if it's not the school color, Jim?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So you should be professional. I'm going to tack on to also what she said. It helps when you do go for the interview to find out, you know, what the process is for that organization. Mm-hmm. In the school district, our gatekeeper, if you would, is always the site secretary, the department secretary. Where that particular vacancy exists for that department at that school site, that secretary is your segue, is your gateway into to visit the hiring manager. So know what that person does and have your resume prepared. That's part of your networking tool, knowing who that person is.
Mm-hmm. What about using a staffing firm, executive recruiters, employment agencies? Have you heard of any success of people working with that? I guess in your store that's a little different because that's not really the process. And for you too, Jim?
We don't work a lot with outside recruiters. We do our own recruiting internally. We do our own advertising. So we don't have a lot of people referred to us from recruiting agencies.
Right. What about the effectiveness of internet? Can people apply for jobs at Publix on the internet?
For our non-retail positions, yes, they can apply online at www.publix.com/careers. For any job that's non-store related, those jobs will be posted there. But any store jobs, you would actually have to go into the store at the kiosk.
Right, okay. And I can't say enough about follow-up. When do you actually ask for the job? In other words, when you're at a job fair or when you're out in the community or whatever, and you happen to know somebody who knows a principal or whatever, when should you ask for the job? Should you, in terms of the follow-up process?
Well, the way the school district works is that the department managers or the site-based principal do have full autonomy to offer positions.
I
So
see.
applicants normally don't request to get the job, they request an interview. And then after the sets of interviews are done, that particular department manager will make his or her decision as to who their best candidate is. And not always is it the most qualified person. It's going to be the person that's the best fit for that particular department or site because of our business. Our business is, we're in the business of teaching kids, so children. We need to make sure that we hire the best for that particular vacancy for that school site.
Right. I want to talk about getting your, people often say, I just want to get my foot in the door. No, you don't. You want to get your feet in the door and the door closed. Because if you have one foot in and one foot out, ouch, my foot, it's hurt, it's on the door. Should people end up trying to get, if the job they're looking for at Publix or the opportunity they're looking for is not available, just if they're having to stock or move boxes or wash produce or whatever, if they're just trying to get their feet in the door, but they actually eventually want to be a cashier, should they try to start at base zero and work their way up?
I would say so.
I heard that's what they like at Publix. They
I
want
would
you to
say so.
pay your dues.
Yes, you definitely have to be flexible in what job you're willing to take. Sometimes you may want a managerial position. You want to be the store manager, where you're not necessarily going to start out as a store manager. You do have to work your way up. We do expect for you to prove yourself as well. And sometimes you may have to have one of those what's called safety jobs in order to get to the next level and achieve your ultimate goal where you wish to be. So sometimes you do have to do that. I would definitely recommend it. I would definitely recommend being flexible along those terms in order to do so, in order to achieve your ultimate goal.
Right. What if it's a job not at Publix and just with the same mantra or the same procedure, you're taking a survival job, a temporary job until you can move up, onward and upward?
Well, Publix definitely believes in promotions from within, so we're going to really count the training and experience that you receive at Publix. I really can't comment on other
But I mean,
jobs.
just in general, to get a job, sometimes it could be a survival job to get from point A to point B. And generally speaking, should people, somebody say, well, look, I don't want to settle for this, I don't want to settle for this amount. And I guess the question is, are you making that amount now? Even minimum wage, my gosh, is $7.79 is about $16,000 a year. You're not making $16,000 besides unemployment doesn't pay $16,000. It pays a little less. Should a person, in other words, isn't it easier to get a job when you have a job?
That's true. That's true. And you definitely do have to keep all of your options open. A lot of our jobs in the stores, they do start out as part-time. So you may have to have that extra job or that extra survival job in order to just hold you over until you can actually, once again, achieve your ultimate goal, achieve where you really want to be. So yes, you do need to consider that as an option for you.
Right. Dr. Good, volunteering is a good way to take care of gaps in employment, is it not?
Absolutely, and it also gets you to know that organization. I also wanted to follow up with your last question. It's important, I think, to sometimes think about the positions that are offered. Maybe they're not exactly the salary that you want, or maybe they're part-time, but know what that particular organization's needs are at that moment. Match them to your strengths, and that'll be the plus to get you in that door. But volunteering, absolutely, it's a good way to start in. We do substitute teachers. A lot of teachers that aren't landing the ideal teaching job will come in as a substitute teacher, which is non-benefited, it is intermittent, but they end up now, once they're known, getting that promotion from within and being appointed to a full-time teaching job down the road.
I'm not going to ask you to name names, but do you know of situations where somebody has started off as a substitute teacher and then became a regular teacher and moved onward and upward all the way up to now they're assistant principal? That's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty good success story, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it is.
Do
Yes,
you know
yes.
of people like that?
Yes, I do. In fact, we even have support staff who start out. I know of a single dad that he was raising kids on his own. He was actually doing custodial work till he got his degree and actually has moved into teaching. So we do have a lot of success stories like that.
Right. Attention to detail. What if somebody came into a situation and they asked you for a pen in your office? Ask you for a pen. Do you have a, ma'am, do you have a pen? Ms. Melvin, do you have a pen? Dr. Good, do you have a pen? I mean, that's very basic and that should be a given. But some people are penless in Tampa, penless in Hillsborough County, penless in Lakeland, penless in Pinellas County, all over.
Come prepared.
come prepared.
Absolutely.
Right. What about questions, asking questions in terms of when somebody is asked, an applicant is asked, a candidate is asked, do you have any questions of me? No, shrugging the shoulders, no, not really. That's not good. Why is that not good?
I think it's not good because you didn't show any interest on anything that we've actually talked about, or I asked you a slew of questions and you have no questions for me. You didn't prepare any questions ahead of time. We answered everything within an interview. It's kind of a turnoff when a person doesn't have any questions for you, because asking questions shows interest. It shows willingness. It shows go-get-it-to-itiveness. I mean, you really have to show that you want that job, and asking questions is a way to portray that.
Is it, you think it's wrong if somebody asks where do you see yourself in 5 years, 2 years, or 5 years? Is there anything wrong with that?
I don't see anything wrong with that.
What about you, Dr. Good?
Absolutely. I'll echo that completely, 100%. If you have no questions, it simply shows the interviewer that you've not prepared for that interview. You have no clue what you're interviewing for, or you have no go-get-itness, if you would, to try to fight for that particular position. You don't know what you're interviewing for.
Right. So to basically review, we're talking about, I forgot, talking to one of the people here at TBCN, and I think it's a given. I was supposed to say, or wanted to say at the beginning of the show, to ask people to get their pencil and paper. But people should have some common sense on their own. I mean, it's nice that I could have reminded them of that at the top of the program instead of the last few minutes. But still, when somebody calls you and asks you for some information, and they call you, and you say, hold on a minute, I have to get a pen. And then they haven't taken the pen. Hey, let me
get one that right.
Take it on a test drive. That's all a part of being prepared. So here's hoping that the viewers on this show today have been prepared, because you all have provided a lot of good information about effective job search techniques. I guess people should research their job prospects. In other words, find out who's the decision maker. In your case at Publix or anywhere else, they should find out who the manager is.
Absolutely.
And what the timetable is for the hiring process. It's a little more complicated, I guess, a little more a longer process within the school district of Hillsborough County, but how does that process, how long does it take for them to reach their goal?
Well, the important thing is to first research what the school district needs are, know what your strengths are, match the two. Also, look at the vacancies and research. It's okay to contact a site or a department to see if a vacancy is truly vacant. And if it's there, follow up, be persistent to get that interview. And then once you follow up with the interview, if you're offered the position, make sure that you show up to your employee processing, your onboarding with all of the required documents, so you don't lengthen the process of onboarding.
Right. Are there any other tips within your organization, or let's talk about outside of your organization, some general things that we may not have covered that you might have wanted to say but were too afraid to ask about this whole process? Because people sort of sometimes do a haphazard kind of thing. They sort of skip and miss around. But if they have a plan and they plan out their day, even to take a break, I think they will get some good results. How important is body language in an interview situation? You're down competing against several other candidates. How important is that in terms of, not having the roll the eyes up in the head situation when somebody is told the wage is not what they expected? You shouldn't do that, should you?
Absolutely not. Body language is very important. It gives a representation of what's really on your mind. You should always be able to sit up straight.
Yes. That too.
Sit up straight, be professional, be friendly. Just like you said, the rolling of the eyes, snapping of the fingers, chewing gum.
Oh, yes.
All those different things are just perceptions that you put out there that your hiring manager will have of you, all for what you are doing or not doing. So it is very important.
Right. Jim, what kind of music do you like?
All kinds.
Okay, classical music?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you call a candidate back and they had 30 seconds of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony or Rhapsody in Blue on their cell phone before their message, what would you think about that person?
They like classical music.
Okay.
But then if you're calling them back for that second interview and they have something inappropriate, that might not have been their best choice of music while they were doing on their job search.
Right. So what about email addresses? Should we stay away from alter egos and just stick to the regular names?
Absolutely.
All right. What about voicemails on the cell phone, Ms. Melvin?
Definitely. Once again, be professional on your cell phone, your voicemail. Just be professional all around. It definitely makes the difference.
Social media, Facebook, Twitter, Facebook pages. I'm not on Facebook, but they say something about my wall is set to private. But there could be, people could kind of hack and get into it and find out about your character, right?
Correct, correct. And I think there's a lot of litigation and possibly legislation, even all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, that's going to come down in the future. But bottom line is this: once you post it, it's out in the world for forever. Would you be embarrassed in any situation, particularly in my world, in the educational world? Teachers are held to a higher standard. If you're coming into the educational field, you must be careful what you put out there. Do we have a district written policy as to what should be done, not be done? No, honestly, we don't. But the rule of thumb is, if you would be embarrassed if it was public, don't do it.
So sometimes people use social media and probably, would you say, put too much information, TMI, put too much information out there, or too much of the wrong information that would suggest that their character is not appropriate for the position. I mean, you're talking about the entities that you represent and people you work for. These are wholesome American apple pie kind of companies and organizations, right?
And parents search for information. They want to know who's teaching their kids, who's around their kids, who's coaching, who's the support staff on the school site. They want to know that.
Right. What about email addresses? What about email addresses other than your name, in other words, an alter ego? Is that appropriate? What if somebody was very highly qualified, but they had an alter ego with their resume attached to an email address that sort of nickname or something like that?
I just think you need to be, just consider what your email address may be and make sure that it is appropriate, again, and professional. I think it's very important.
Right. First impressions, everything. You were going to
Those
say.
are the key words: appropriate and professional. You know, can we tell you exactly what is a do and a don't do? I think not, but certainly when you present that email address to a prospective employer, that it be appropriate and professional.
I like the Google search engine or Google Chrome. It says put in professional interview attire, or interview attire for a school teacher, for a store manager, or whatever. Then you can kind of get an idea, and then more than likely it's going to be dress up, right?
Yep. I had one thing I'd like to add at the end,
Yes, sir.
Dale.
1 minute or less.
Oh, sure. And that's when someone leaves the interview, I think it's appropriate for them to understand that they want to leave that impression that they wanted to make, that the topic of conversation after they leave that interview is not their email address. It's not what they were wearing or what they weren't wearing. It's not something that they said was inappropriate. That doesn't need to be the main focus for that prospective employer, because then if they did that, that interview failed.
Right. I'd like to thank my guest today. Thank both of you, LaTarsha Melvin, who is the retail staffing specialist at Publix Supermarkets based in Lakeland. 270 stores are under your jurisdiction, so to speak. Yes. And Dr. Jim Good, who is the Human Resource Manager with Hillsborough County Public Schools. We'd like to thank you again for being on our program. And we hope that our viewers take what we've talked about today to heart and try to use it to your advantage. Happy job hunting out there.
The Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance and WorkNet Pinellas offer workforce solutions designed to improve your business. To learn more about our no-cost programs and services, visit workforcetampa.com or worknetpinellas.org.